from Hastings, Nebraska. I'm a double major in communication studies as well as digital design and development. I want to begin by saying thank you for taking a little bit of time amidst all of this madness to listen to my research proposal, because it's something that I'm really excited about, and I hope by the end of this presentation you become excited about it as well. So without further ado, let's jump in. The research question that my project seeks to answer is, how does the implementation of public policies affect or alter our perception of cultural identity? To answer, I am conducting a cross-cultural analysis of 4 countries: the United States, Germany, Ireland, and the Czech Republic. And to understand what we're dealing with here, it's important to identify a few key terms. First, for purposes of this study, culture will be defined using Robert Cole's 1979 definition, which reads, "An integrated system of learned behavior patterns that are characteristic of the members of any given society. It includes everything that a group of people thinks, says, does, and makes. Its systems, attitudes, and feelings." And public policy will be defined as a system of laws, regulatory measures, courses of action, and funding priorities concerning a given topic promulgated by a governmental entity or its representatives. And that comes from Kilpatrick in 2000. Now that we have those definitions in mind, let's get into what this research entails. I'll begin by doing a review of literature. I've split the lit review into the respective sections of cultural identity and public policy. Research indicates strong ties between culture and policy. It also shows that policy typically is instituted as a direct reaction to changes in culture. However, there's a gap in research of how public policies can impact one's perception of cultural identity. We know far less about the inevitable influences that public policies have on us at an individual level. Jumping into the cultural identity section, I have divided it by each respective country. First, it's really important to note that the United States is significantly more diverse than the other 3 countries that I've analyzed, and that comes from the World Population Review in 2020. The magnitude of the ethnic spread in America is great, yet many scholars agree that there are still a few significant values that most Americans live by. In The Values Americans Live By, Coles cites 13 distinct values that are unique to the American culture. He argues that most Americans themselves would choose to not answer with a definitive list when asked what values they live by. Yet he argues that a foreign anthropologist would have no problem identifying these values and finding that they fit most, if not all, Americans. He also writes that these cultural aspects are viewed as being positive by Americans, whereas change, which is value number 2, would be extremely threatening to third world countries. The cultural identity of Germans, however, is a little bit different. Idem and Partner argue that objectivism, structures, and rules, time planning, and directness make up most of the values that Germans live by. In Ireland, citizens value modesty, humor, ingenuity, creativity, patriotism, warmth, and mateship. Taking a step back and viewing these European countries as a whole was really interesting in terms of identity. 2019 findings from the Eurobarometer, which is an entity that assesses the public opinions of Europeans, found that most Europeans view themselves first as their nationality, then European, with a close second being solely their nationality. Okay, moving on to the public policy section of the literature review. I examined that on a more broad level as opposed to individual countries for the sake of continuity. In this section, I discussed the traditional approaches to the formation of and the implementation of different policies. Public policies, according to Mettler and Sauss, frame the meaning and origins of societal problems. By pursuing particular types of solutions, policies convey messages about the underlying nature of a problem and consequently shape citizens' opinions and perceptions of an issue. These dynamics cause policy framing to have a significant influence on the public's subsequent understanding of the issue at hand. But perhaps the most important finding for public policy in relation to identity is that the framing of issues by partisan elites and mass media organizations shapes public understanding of the roots of contemporary problems and merits understanding of alternative solutions. To find the factors that determine this mix, we must look beyond the individual to the communication flows that citizens receive from political elites and mass media. We know that the premise of this research is to determine the correlation, if any, between the policies that a country implements and its citizens' perception of cultural identity. The primary method of research I'm going to be using to answer this question comes in the form of analyzing published research, but a supplementary component is going to consist of interviews. So the interviews serve the purpose of providing a real-world check on my findings to corroborate or triangulate my findings. These respondents will be drawn from a convenient sample constructed through personal contacts that I have with individuals in each of these countries. Semi-structured and built around an interview guide. All questions are going to allow for open-ended responses that hopefully will drive the conversation and provide candid, more authentic responses from the respondents. The questions are asked to each respondent in the same order and are all focused on obtaining opinionated responses. The interviews will take place via FaceTime or Google Hangouts, and with the respondents' express permission, the audio will be recorded on a phone application, then transcribed. I will analyze the content for information that either corroborates or conflicts with the hypotheses I've formed based on the research that I've compiled thus far. I will then propose potential explanations for these discrepancies in the research, if the discrepancies do arise. And since the interviews are anonymous to protect the identities of all of the respondents, I'm not able to show you any footage or play any audio for you, but please enjoy my own personal dramatic interpretation of what my interviews have looked like thus far and will look like for the foreseeable future. Hi, thanks for meeting with me today. Oh wait, sorry, what was that? I couldn't hear you, you cut out. Just go ahead and say that one more time, please. Oh, you know what? My audio wasn't even recording that whole time. Can you go ahead and just say that one more time? Oh, you're frozen. As of today, I'm still in the process of gathering data from interviews, but what I've found so far is as follows. In my interview with the respondent residing in the Czech Republic, one of the biggest themes that drove our conversation was the westernization of Czech culture. A couple highlights from that interview include the fact that Czech people are very proud to be Czech, but not in an aggressive nationalist way. Another quote was, "We are proud of our niche language, our beer, and our dogs. People love dogs." Education and learning is also highly regarded here. There are several subsidies and benefits available for students, and because of that, the population seems to be quite educated. I've also conducted an interview with a German citizen as well, and some of the highlights from that interview include Germans love their food and the philosophical history of Germany. We like invention and engineering. All of these things Germans are proud of. I think you have to draw the line between cultural identity and national identity because they're really different. And sometimes, like in the United States, it's kind of muddled. But here, they're kind of two different things for citizens. Let's move on to an interview I conducted with an Irish citizen. For some people in Ireland, the Irish language is the single most important part of their cultural identity. Only a small percent of the Irish population actually speaks Gaelic on a daily basis or would consider themselves fluent in the language, and that number is right around 2% of Ireland's population. And while most of the country, the other 98%, does not prioritize the preservation and the continuation of the Gaelic language, the small portion of people who are able to speak the language feel that it is very strongly tied to their identity. The individual I had the opportunity to interview is one of them. They said, Only 100,000 people in Ireland speak Gaelic on a daily basis, but for those people, that's the most important part of their lives, their world. We are protecting it like you'd protect an endangered species because it's our culture, our heritage. I received CHSR approval to complete my interviews on April 21st of 2020, and that approval lasts for 1 year. So within that year-long time frame, I intend on executing the remaining interviews that I have for my project, as I've only been able to complete a select handful since being approved. As I continue to gather interview data, I continue to become increasingly fascinated with the ways in which certain policies can make an individual feel super patriotic, super proud of their country, or inversely, very ashamed of their country and very embarrassed to be from that country. In the coming weeks, I'm going to be conducting several more interviews, and I'm thrilled for this because the interviews that I've conducted so far have been extremely eye-opening and very valuable to this research. I'm so excited to see where my research leads me with this project. It's something that I've been personally curious about for a long time, and now, of course, I'm academically interested in it as well. Thank you so much for tuning in and learning where I'm at with this project. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions for this research, feel free to reach out to me via email. I will put it on the screen here. Here is the works cited for all of the references that I referred to in this video, but I would like to leave you all with a challenge, and that is simply to ponder any policy that your government has implemented. It could be related to education, it could be related to agriculture or to finance. Think of any policy and the impact that it had on your personal life. I think you'll be surprised to learn the ways in which our government can affect us each and every day. That's something to keep in mind going forward, and keep in mind how it plays a part in defining your own culture. I would also like to give a special thanks to Dr. Amio for being my faculty sponsor on this honors capstone project. He has helped so much with the formation of this research as well as the development of ideas, and I'm very grateful for that. Thank you again.